The water is a little higher than I'm used to seeing it. I've been here many times over the years.
His name is Eric Ulis, a one-time professional blackjack player who's become one of the nation's most respected amateur sleuths into one of this nation's deepest mysteries. We are walking along the Washington side of the mighty Columbia River, where it runs north and south. This water has already passed by Portland, Oregon, on its way to the Pacific.
If you go out about 15 feet, that's the precise money find spot. The money find spot is now offshore.
And this is the money, nearly $6,000 of badly deteriorated 20s found by a child and his family digging on a beach known as Tina Bar back in February 1980. That was 41 years ago, and so far is the only physical evidence found on the ground connected to D.B. Cooper. It was a man actually ticketed as Dan Cooper who notified the crew of Northwest Airlines Flight 304 from Portland to SeaTac airports saying he had a bomb. The initials DB stuck due to an error in a news story. At SeaTac, he demanded $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, a refueled airplane, and along with just the pilots, took off from SeaTac heading south, demanding the plane be flown to Mexico. But it was over Southwest Washington, wearing one of the parachutes, he had the back stairway unique to the Boeing 727 lowered and jumped into the rainy darkness of Thanksgiving Eve, 1971. There have always been competing theories. One of those theories was that D.B. Cooper landed in the wide Columbia River and drowned, and that's why the money washed up on Tina Bar.
And most people would rather think that he got away with it, and they're reluctant to accept my theory that he drowned that night.
King 5 was there in 2005 when former FBI agent Richard Tosaw, in retirement, spent his own money to hire a barge and dive teams.
17 October, this is a search for Dan Cooper.
Looking for evidence of the parachute, the bank bag holding the money, the briefcase holding what was thought to be a bomb, more likely a fake, or even remains of Cooper himself. The FBI and even Tosaw himself dug up the beach on Tina Bar looking for more cash. But beyond the 3 packets of money found with rotting rubber bands in 1980, nothing else was located. Ulis thinks they were looking in the wrong place. He's looking further away from the river.
So I believe the parachutes, the money, and the briefcase were all buried. I don't think it was one big pit. I believe he probably had 3 smaller sized holes with items in different holes.
Ulis has something the FBI and Tosaw didn't have: diatoms. Diatoms are the microscopic remains of algae that were discovered on the money by another civilian investigator, Tom Kay. They are a major clue, and here's the thing. Kay says different types of algae grow during different seasons, and the algae on the money was from the spring, not the late fall of 1971 when Cooper jumped.
So we know with certainty that that money did not enter the Columbia River on the night he jumped or for any period of time after he jumped for several months.
So the money, Ulis theorizes, probably stayed buried high and dry until the water rose in the late spring of 1972, 6 months later.
I think hearing about the flood, he realized that he better come back and get the money, otherwise it's either going to be swept out to the Pacific Ocean or it may just become uncovered and somebody may happen to come across it. I think unbeknownst to him, 3 of those packets were left behind.
So now he digs, along with the help from volunteers who've also been drawn into what's called the Cooper Vortex. Further up on what was beach, now covered in recent decades by an erosion-resistant layer of rocks and dirt.
Big rock that I just pulled out of the bottom of this hole, and the bottom half of the rock is just sand. So I know we are at the beach level at this point.
Ulis doesn't expect to find more money, but he's betting the parachutes are there and maybe even that briefcase.
I think it would be provide a treasure trove of evidence, not the least of which may be DNA. That could break the case wide open right there.
Then consider this. Just weeks ago, U.S. Marshals solved a case even older than Cooper's. In 1969, 20-year-old Ohio bank teller Ted Conrad left work one night with a bag loaded with $215,000 in cash, only to vanish. Conrad would live on as Thomas Rendell from Massachusetts. He married, raised a family, and was deeply involved in his community, even with pals in the police force. The money long gone, but the case solved in the wake of his recent death. Is that what we're looking at here? Could we see that kind of moment for a D.B. Cooper?
I think in more ways than one we may see that. The one thing that I thought about when I heard the story about this guy is that illustrates perfectly well that D.B. Cooper, like this guy that robbed the bank, didn't have to be a black ops guy, didn't have to be a CIA project or anything of that nature. He just had to be somebody who was just one step ahead of the authorities and laid low and didn't talk about it. That's all it takes for this guy to get away with it.
Like the Conrad caper, the D.B. Cooper mystery has long been fodder for TV whodunit shows, some of which Ulis himself has appeared. While these crimes have held our attention for a half-century or more, nobody was murdered, no kidnapped child was involved, yet it sticks with many of us, including Eric.
Does it matter? Probably not, but it's just a really cool story.
Near Vancouver, Washington, Glenn Farley, King 5 News.